Recently on Twitter, there's been a lot of conversation about BTS and Big Hit and their relationship to capitalism. And this has been a critique for a while now, of course, but recently I've noticed it's become more frequent in arguments on K-pop Twitter. There's been a lot of discourse surrounding this, and for a long time I've been wanting to make a video about it. So today we will just be doing that. In this video, I will try to be nuanced and give objective facts. However, I am a human being, and I do have opinions, so I will also be giving my opinion. If you are not prepared for that, then I guess this video isn't for you. I'm not a Manti-Army, however, I am not a Big Hit stan, and I would never classify myself as such. And I would not say that I'm a quote-unquote bootlicker. So if you have come for any of those things, I suggest you leave now. The first major critique or complaint I hear a lot of people talk about is that BTS and or Big Hit exploit their fans. Now, I don't think it's a secret that Big Hit wants money from ARMYs, and a lot of the so-called bootlickers that K-pop Twitter wants to classify ARMYs as even understand and know this. Ultimately, Big Hit is a company, and companies want to gain profit. And I honestly think that it's a bit of an unfair generalization to paint ARMYs as stans of Big Hit. Also, painting ARMYs as people who are just in denial and would rather defend Big Hit over anything. However, I'm not trying to deny the company stans that Big Hit do in fact have. In this video, we will be discussing why there are so many stans of Big Hit and why it seems like ARMYs act like criticizing Big Hit is the same thing as criticizing BTS. Anyways, I do find the exploitative narrative unfair when it comes to the Love Yourself series in particular. Ever since the trilogy has released, K-pop stans have been painting the Love Yourself series as BTS and also Big Hit, but primarily BTS, as exploiting their mental health and the fans' mental health for money and recognition, specifically in the West. So, why has this critique been around for what seems like since its conception? Well, in 2017, Big Hit released a survey for ARMYs to fill out. As you can see here, I am filling out the survey. I found this on Reddit and I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out yourself. In case you don't believe me though, there's a video made by YouTuber Cameron Phillips where he fills out this survey when it came out, and I'll link that in the description as well. A good portion of these questions were like, how did you discover BTS? Rank what you like the most about BTS. How many hours do you spend watching/consuming BTS related content? Where do you connect with BTS the most? It's just a typical survey evaluating the audience to get a consensus on what connects with fans the most, and what works for Big Hit in terms of marketing and where to put attention to. So, why are people upset about this? As you can see here, the last 3 questions have the person taking it rate on a scale of 1 to 5. I see myself as someone who gets nervous easily. I see myself as someone who is depressed, blue. I see myself as someone who worries a lot. And to a lot of K-pop stans, this rang some alarm bells. And there were a lot of people misconstruing the whole thing as Big Hit making a survey to evaluate ARMY's mental health. Big Hit only asked this question to exploit ARMYs and exploit depression. As you can see, that's just not the case. It was just 3 questions out of 29 pages of completely different topics. It really wasn't made to exploit mental health. It was just collecting data on BTS's audience and demographics, and those just happened to be 3 of the questions. Personally, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. To me, it just comes off as, like I said, collecting information. However, I do feel like I'm sounding a bit redundant here. A lot of people think that it was specifically for the Love Yourself series, and Big Hit only did it to start the Love Yourself series in the first place, basically implying that the only reason why it exists is because of what Big Hit concluded from the survey, when that's just not the case at all. In fact, Love Yourself Her, the first release in the trilogy, was released on September 18th, 2017. Big Hit's tweet announcing the survey was tweeted September 30th, 2017. The survey was then conducted October 1st, 2017 to October 30th, 2017. So, the idea that the Love Yourself series was made to exploit mental health and the fans who answered that they were nervous or felt blue a lot is just baseless and untrue. I do get that information is very easy to misrepresent on the internet, and for it to spread where people are misinformed, and especially on a platform like Twitter. But it's really a shame that this survey was twisted so much, and that the Love Yourself series is always seen by K-pop stans and people who don't know BTS as a thing solely for profit, and that it's not something that BTS care themselves about. The next thing I'd like to address is the assumption that antis have that BTS only talk about or sing about mental health, show the hard times they have in their documentaries, and write songs about mental health to look good, for fans to feel sympathy for them, and ultimately to make money. The members themselves have stated time and time again just how much they believe that conversations on mental health should be, to use a word I don't like, normalized, and have shown their support for mental health advocacy. Especially members RM and Suga have been known for speaking about how important speaking about mental health is to them. RM has even spoken about seeing a therapist, which is not exactly common in South Korea. It's not uncommon for people to just not talk about it. On Jin's birthday, he released a track titled Abyss and opened up to fans about how he'd been feeling lately. He talked about his feelings of burnout and imposter syndrome, about the recent massive success BTS has achieved within the year. He was told to try to convey his feelings in the form of song and songwriting, so he released Abyss. Jin is known for being a member who is a bit more private about his personal life, so for him to talk about it was very big and resonated with a lot of people, especially people of color who deal with imposter syndrome. To go back to RM and Suga, they have stated that to them, it is very important for people with a big platform to speak about mental health. Suga has even said that people should talk about it like they would the common cold. For many years, they have released songs and mixtapes which include themes of mental health. In fact, there is a track that RM released pre-debut in 2012 at about 16 or 17 years old that is about suicide and the theme of suicide ideation that he'd been dealing with. So it's safe to say that it's something that RM and the other members of BTS have been talking about for a long time. The track is called Suicide and it's on YouTube for everyone who wants to listen to the whole thing. In 2018, member Jimin released a track written by RM and Jimin himself. The track is called Promise, and it's a letter to Jimin from Jimin, and is also to ARMYs. He advises the listener and himself that you should be your own light so that one can find the strength to love themselves through anything. Even more recently, V talked about how he wrote the song on BTS's newest album, B, as a source of comfort to the listener. The track Blue and Gray is raw and vulnerable. V says instead of words like cheer up, the song's atmosphere is inviting. V is talking to you, the listener, and saying, oh, you're sad? Me too. Want to talk about it? V says that this is the way to make people feel better. I have to agree. This song has quickly become one of my top favorite BTS songs. I find the criticisms of that strange, to be quite honest. Even if you don't like mental health being discussed in songs and you like your K-pop stupid and meaningless, I don't see how it could even bother someone enough to bash on songs that other people feel connected to and sing. These criticisms come across as nitpicking at whatever BTS do and whatever ARMYs like and connect to, rather than an attempt at an honest conversation about mental health in music. The next thing people criticize BTS and Big Hit about are prices, merch prices, and album prices. Basically, to a lot of people, the price of merch is very high, and the price of BTS's newest album, B, is also very high. I can definitely agree that $40, $60, $80 are very expensive, especially for things like a sweatshirt. Most people aren't able to afford something like that. $50 for an album is also very pricey. I see a lot of major criticism towards Big Hit in their overpriced merch and selling water bottles to the Korean fans. My next opinion is probably going to get me into some trouble. I'd imagine that people could get upset. I do have to ask you to question your need for merch. Ask yourself, what, to me, is the reason why an album that costs $25, not including shipping, is so much better than a $50 one, not including shipping? You might answer that it's the items in it, such as the photo cards and the photo book, maybe packaging and a collectible. Ask yourself the need to buy an album in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that album buying is bad, or that poor people can't have nice things, or you live and participate in society, yet you critique it. No, I think that it's totally okay to want to buy an album and to stream and buy things to support your favorite artist. However, I do question why an album that comes with a photo card that is $25 is relatively okay as long as you enjoy it. Yet buying a more expensive album for a higher price for your enjoyment is bad. I'm not even defending the price, and I hope it doesn't really come across as that. I do think that $50 for 2 photo books and 8 photo cards is a bit overpriced, to say the least. However, I do see tons of overpriced K-pop albums all the time. When I bought Luna albums, for example, the price was marked super high for both the deluxe version and the non-deluxe version of the photo books, even though both versions of the same album have the same photo book and generally you just get a different photo card and a few extra pictures, maybe. However, I do recognize that it was my choice to buy an album from Luna in the first place. I decided to spend $30 on a Luna album that now sits on my shelf that I sometimes look through the photo book again on a rainy day, just because I wanted to support Luna. No one made me buy it, I chose to, and that's kind of my point. Like I said, I'm not saying poor people don't deserve things. I'm saying that when coming across a situation like, oh, this album is expensive, and you know that it would affect you monetarily, income-wise, evaluate the use it will give you. Personally, I could have used the money I spent on a cute piece of merch that I would wear or use so it's applicable in my daily life, so I don't feel guilty for spending money on it. And so I'm not as upset about the money I lost that could have been saved up. And that's my controversial opinion. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need to pay for albums, but unfortunately, there are a lot of instances that require sacrifice, and if it really will affect you to buy it. Now, who knows, maybe buying albums makes someone happy. It may make someone feel accomplished whenever they finish filling in their biases photo card from all 5 versions of the newest album to put in their photo card binder. To me, I think there are worse things to be interested in and to find happiness in. Though I do realize there is something to be said about the consummerative nature of K-pop stans, and I've also thought about making a video on that, actually. However, I feel like a lot of that topic has been discussed a lot before, so it's no secret to anyone that K-pop companies want money. So if you want to call Bang PD a money-hungry capitalist pig, I honestly couldn't care less. Where I do care is when people talk to a fan base that is known for having lots of young women and act like they're not able to realize that albums or merch are very overpriced, that those people are dumb for quote-unquote giving millionaires money by streaming their favorite artists or funding a fan base so other fans can buy the song from the artist that they love when it comes out. That is ultimately my issue with that. No one should be rich. Fundamentally, I don't disagree with this point. In fact, I very much agree with this argument. It's true, the idea of richness is unethical, since in order for there to be rich people at the top, there have to be those at the bottom, right? I do find something hypocritical about this though, because the bulk of the people who say this aren't communists who just happen to come across a BTS stan. No, they're K-pop stans, meaning they stan celebrities. Oftentimes, these people stan groups like Blackpink, Luna, NCT, EXO, or Red Velvet. I can kind of get where Orbits get this underdog, I'm fighting the system by standing a group actually mentality from. But I absolutely do not get where it comes from fans of these other groups. I'm not saying that you can't stan a celebrity while critiquing celebrity culture, but oftentimes this mentality of I just hate the rich and celebrities is just a thinly veiled dislike of BTS, but rebranded. I won't try and stop you from disliking BTS. I think that would be extremely unproductive. But I would love to see more criticisms of the groups you also stan. And don't say, oh, well, I do that all the time, if it's only something you only self-check in passing mentally. I do think that it's a good grounding reminder to tell yourself that celebrity culture is bad in the end. K-pop stans who take on this persona or are even genuine about it, 99% of the time, don't go about it from a place of well-meaning and looking out for armies. It usually either seems like you're just finding a reason to talk shit about BTS, or it becomes so unproductive because no one in these arguments portray their opinions well. Let me set the scene for you in a fashion I usually see go down on K-pop Twitter. Person A, A K-pop stan with a hammer and sickle in the display name tweets,
If only those stans realize that their faves don't really love them and all and every other rich person want is their money. They don't care about you.
Person B, an army, replies,
Whoa, but Jungkook is sitting right next to me. Anyways, just because your faves don't love you doesn't mean mine don't. I'll stay mad.
By the end of it, both are calling each other's names, someone gets ratioed and goes private, and no productive and necessary conversation was had. Both sides could have handled their statements much better. First, the army could have ignored it in the first place, since it's a statement that people say that gets armies heated about every 5 days or so, and the K-pop stan approached it in a way that comes across as looking down on armies for being stupid and thinking that their idols actually love and appreciate armies. It really does come across as if the OP thinks that no one that stands BTS has ever heard of a parasocial relationship, or that armies think that BTS love them at an individual level. It also questions BTS's genuineness and if they actually love their fans, like they act and say they do, which of course will provoke armies. And I have my own thoughts on this, and I am planning on making a video about this concept and this idea. A lot of the time, conversations like that aren't to be had on K-pop Twitter, honestly, when a lot of the criticisms people have of BTS and armies really do come from wanting to incite a fan war, and even if the K-pop stan was being genuine and was just trying to start dialogue, it seems like it's a bit useless for the dialogue to be had on stan Twitter, where people could just call you out on partaking in standing and supporting celebrities. And Twitter is just not the place to have conversations that require nuance like this. There are people who seem to think that BTS are obligated to be socially aware. When people say this, I think they mean to speak about social issues in particular. I noticed the sentiment among antis that BTS are class traders or that they sold out for money. They say this because in the past, they've written about topics such as the harsh education system in South Korea, economic disparity in society, how the upper class looks down on the commoners in South Korea, and RM wrote about Korea unification at age 12. Since BTS seemingly don't make these songs or talk about these, they must not care, right? I would argue that that's not the case at all. On Love Yourself Her, an album that was largely criticized for being too Western sounding, there's a track called Go Go. It critiques society in both Korea's economic system not benefiting young people, causing them to not earn money, but said young people will still have to spend it on the things they enjoy because YOLO. The other lens is that it's also critiquing the materialism of society, and people use terms like YOLO so much in Korea that they become empty. And young people don't even think about what they're saying or why they're saying it. Paradise, a song from Love Yourself Tear, is inspired by Marxism. In Map of the Soul 7, there's a rap line track called Uk, a song that encapsulates the feeling of being angry at anger, especially on the internet, a song about outrage culture. Estranged by Augusty featuring RM is a song with social commentary and a discussion on wealth distribution. Now in this video, I've only listed very recent BTS songs because a lot of these complaints are about BTS from probably about 2017. However, you can look through their whole entire back catalog and see that this has been a recurring theme for them. I assume that people want more though. I've seen people want BTS to speak on things like the US presidential election, speak on the harsh nature of K-pop companies being exploitative, and give their opinions on things like the reunification of Korea. In a way, yes, celebrities should use their platform to speak out on important issues. But I do tend to see a lot of people treat BTS as if they should lead the socialist revolution because they are so famous. Personally, I think that any celebrity leading leftist discourse can get very terrible very quickly. Celebrities just shouldn't be the main talking heads of these conversations. There are a lot of K-pop stans who make it seem like BTS are the accumulation of all things wrong with capitalism and the exploitation of workers. Like BTS disbanding would be the final boss and capitalism would be close to diminished if BTS are out of the picture. I'm not sure if this is a result of people projecting onto BTS, realizing that being into K-pop they are contributing to an industry that can be harsh and can, in fact, exploit their workers, just like any industry. Or if they think that BTS are the 21st century of Ayn Rand. To me, I don't completely buy that these stans actually care much about this issue. Sure, they may think that BTS and celebrity worship are bad things, and I'm sure a lot of them do. But I think that more often than not, people will use this as a way of hating on BTS, but in a way that is digestible to onlookers. Not many people want to be seen as a person who sucks up to the rich and defends people who are wealth hoarders. And that's how the optics of these conversations can seem sometimes. But honestly, I no longer take this argument seriously. There can always be room for improvement. And sure, BTS could always speak out more on issues, but really, they've done a lot. First, I will be speaking in generalizations. I'm very aware of the existence of mantis and armies that do criticize and hate Big Hit. To answer this question, we'll have to go back and look at BTS's history. For a very long time, BTS were the only active group under Big Hit. From 2014 to 2019, anytime people criticized Big Hit, the group they'd associate with Big Hit was BTS. Odds are, any decision Big Hit made was about BTS or would directly impact BTS. Unlike companies like SM, where if SM was making a decision, a person's first thought most likely isn't, EXO's company, because EXO isn't the only group under SM, let alone the only successful group under SM. What happens with this is that people will easily conflate Big Hit and BTS. The actions of Big Hit would in some ways reflect on BTS, or their well-being as a group. Both antis and armies did and still do this. I can't say that I entirely blame them either. Take ATEEZ's company, for example. When people talk about their company, odds are it has a relation to ATEEZ in some way, or ATEEZ is at least in the back of their mind because ATEEZ is the group that people know from KQ. It's pretty normal and it's nobody's fault. As I said before, people still associate Big Hit with BTS to this very day, even though Big Hit Entertainment and Big Hit labels have other groups under them. BTS is what made Big Hit a successful company. So when Big Hit labels makes a business move that doesn't have anything to do with BTS, people still will subconsciously or consciously associate that with BTS. During the time I took off from writing the script, there was a perfect example of this exact phenomenon. It was announced that Big Hit would collaborate with Universal Music Group to form an American boy group, purposefully garnered for the West. This caused ARMY Twitter to have a whole conversation about this. Arguments occurred with people being upset because they felt like Big Hit was neglecting BTS, which caused people to fight over whether this argument was found at all. You get the idea. Really, it's unlikely that this decision will affect BTS at all. However, people still associate BTS with Big Hit. When I looked up Big Hit for an article reference, all of the articles were titled something like Big Hit, BTS's label pairs with UMG to form a boy group. So even outsiders will associate the two. And that will most likely remain the case for a long time. As much as it may annoy people that there will be arguments amongst armies every time Big Hit makes a decision that is mostly unrelated to BTS. Taking this into consideration, it would only make sense that this way of thinking will leak into other aspects of armies and antis as well. Take this scenario. A BTS anti on Twitter says,
"But it is the worst company in K-pop history. Evil capitalists that just exploit their stupid fans for money. They are ruining K-pop."
It's easy for an army to interpret that as said person using Big Hit indirectly to drag BTS. Because saying something like BTS are greedy capitalists is an argument that is bound to make armies mad, right? It would only make sense to use Big Hit to degrade BTS indirectly, since many people won't try to refute the fact that Big Hit is money hungry. Even if that person genuinely meant that Big Hit are capitalists, there's no matter what going to be BTS in the back of your mind when you speak about Big Hit. So whenever it seems like armies are protecting Big Hit in an argument, there could be a chance that they are reading between the lines, whether that's found or not. I won't say that this is the case for everyone who seems to defend Big Hit. There are Big Hit company stands that do in fact exist, which is not something unique to Big Hit, but a K-pop fandom issue in general. People are only in recent years calling out this culture of company stans. This issue even causes disputes within the fandom. A combat against this has formed a type of army that I've mentioned a few times in this video called manager antis, or mantis for short. Mantis are BTS fans that vehemently hate Big Hit. These armies often take their hatred to extremes. For example, there was a clip of BTS eating McDonald's and mantis got angry saying that Big Hit don't care about BTS's health. Mantis can sometimes be so blinded by their hatred of Big Hit that they ignore the fact that BTS can take care of themselves. They tend to act like they are business managers and know what's best for BTS and what's best for their career. Oftentimes, they'll also get defensive if people give them alternate explanations for why BTS or Big Hit may be making a decision that they don't like. Mantis also tend to be TXT and N-hypen antis, and think that Big Hit wastes BTS's money on stupid things like new groups. A common way of thinking is also that Big Hit neglects promoting BTS and are lazy promoting them compared to groups like TXT. This was a very popular criticism of Big Hit by Mantis when B was released. Manti way of thinking can also lead to solo standing way of thinking. We'll call this the solo stan industrial complex, as victimization of a member and belief that a member is being mistreated by the company leads to solo stan behavior. I've seen many armies have even expressed how they wish that mantis that pick up Big Hit for the littlest things and antis who use Big Hit as the scapegoat to hate on BTS would stop, since there are many fair criticisms of Big Hit to be discussed, but the ones that pop up the most by them are mostly either nonsensical or not very productive conversations to be had. Something I hope that is taken from this video is that just because you may see a side to armies that seemingly protect Big Hit, before you take all armies as economically unaware liberals, know that there is more nuance than what meets the eye. I think painting all armies to be collectively any type of way is ultimately bad, since there are tens of millions of armies and not even a group of 10 people are the same. Even saying 100 armies agree with something isn't nearly representative of the millions of armies out there. I even assumed that there are armies who would disagree with this very video. Overall, I want people to try to deconstruct these opinions that they have about BTS that I've covered in this video, and try to not be so quick to believe what they read about BTS from random K-pop Twitter stans who also hate BTS. So, let me know your thoughts on how BTS is viewed by leftist K-pop Twitter. I'm interested in what people have to say, and I think YouTube is a little bit of a better place to have productive discussions like this, better than Twitter at the very least. I think oftentimes because there's such a short character limit on Twitter and things are very easily misrepresented, it's really hard to have full-on discussions and really try to explain your arguments and what you think. Thank you to anyone who's made it this far. I really appreciate it. Like I said before, this is something that's been on my mind for the past however many months. This has become a popular discussion on Twitter. So that's all. Okay, bye.